Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing podcast. I'm Matthew Barton. Today we're talking with President and CEO of Rebellion Brewing Co., Mark Heise. How's it going, Mark?
It's fantastic. It's always a good day when you're making beer.
So what we're doing here today is we're launching the inaugural episode of the Rebellion Brewing podcast. What that is we're going to talk a little bit about beer. What listeners can expect is every week we're going to bring on someone new. We're going to drink a little bit of beer. We're going to talk about what we're tasting, what we appreciate, maybe what we hated, and then we'll move on to an interview format. How does it sound to you?
Sounds great. We're stoked to start doing some of this stuff. We're going to try and have some fun with it. Might get a little nerdy, a little technical. We'll maybe dive a little bit deeper into some stuff, but kind of just get all over the map as well. Try to just highlight on all the interesting things going on at Rebellion Brewing. It's really hard to capture all the things we do sometimes, especially into a tweet or whatever. So anyways, we're going to give this a whirl, and hopefully we have some fun with it, and hopefully you guys get something out of it as well.
All right, let's start with the beer. What beer did you bring today?
Well, we brought part of the segment is we're going to try and talk about at least one beer every session. And so we thought we'd kick it off with a beer that we just bottled last week. So it's just came out, just available. It's called Make It Funky. And Make It Funky is a oak-aged wild ale, or some people may call it a Brett beer. Sometimes people have trouble wrapping their heads around what that all means. People sometimes throw it under the category of, well, it's a sour beer. It's a pet peeve of mine when people refer to Brett beers as sour beers, because they are not actually sour. They don't have sour bacteria like a lacto or a PDO added to it. It does have Brettanomyces. It's a type of yeast, just like our regular brewer's yeast, but Brettanomyces takes a lot longer, all that sort of stuff. It takes about a year to make. We age it in oak barrels, and the Brettanomyces slowly does its thing and creates all these kind of crazy, weird, interesting flavors. A lot of fruity notes, but then there's just, it's sometimes hard to describe, but we describe it as funky or wild. There's just kind of that unique character that only Brett can produce. Some people like it, some people don't. It's definitely a little more out there from some of our more standard beers. And yeah, I've been making Brett beers for a long time. I started out making them at home, and I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. I've done a lot of research on Brett in general. The fellow that wrote the book, Michael Tonsmere, American Wild Ales. So he also has a blog called The Mad Fermentationist. So when he first started that, me and him chatted a lot, exchanged a lot of emails on different ideas on brewing with Brett and all that sort of stuff. So I'm certainly not laying claim that I had anything to do with his book, but I am proud of the fact that I could more than hold my own and exchange ideas on recipes and Brettanomyces with an actual author on the subject. I've also been to Crooked Stave, they do tons of Brett beers. And
where are they located?
They're in Denver, Colorado. So I've actually been to all three of their locations over the years. They actually were brewing out of Fort Collins at Funkworks originally. Yeah, so there's some of that yeast right in this beer. It's pretty cool stuff.
For somebody who's never had a Brett before, I think this will be my second time I've had a Brett. What should they know?
Again, very, very different flavor profile. It's described as a pale ale. If you've had a pale ale, this is not going to taste like any other pale ale you've had. It's very different. Like I say, it's going to
smell it already.
Yeah, we cracked the bottle. It's already very fragrant. When we were bottling it, the whole brewery it was just fruit, very fruit forward. That's what we're really trying to get. That's really what if you've had those beers from Crooked Stave, very fruit forward, very interesting. Some people will describe Brett beers as sweaty or horsey or goaty, barnyardish. No, don't go like that. That's not appealing, and that's not what the flavors are about at all. We're trying to produce really interesting fruit forward flavors. We describe it on the bottle, the fruit flavors, as I think apricot, orange, and passion fruit. It's exotic. You still get some of that soft white wine-like kind of character. I can get a vanilla note in it.
What do you mean when you say white wine character?
Again, white wine. So some of again, I'm not a wine expert. I just kind of know what I like and what I don't like. Now I'm going to sound like a real idiot because I'm just drawing a total blank on some of the wine varietals. But again, some of those really really interesting kind of tropical fruit notes that you can get in some of the white wines, and as well some of the oaked Chardonnays, where you get a little bit of that oaky character. Oaked Chardonnay is typically buttery. I wouldn't call it buttery, but you get a little bit of that oaky vanilla note kind of a thing.
Well, let's take a smell. Let's take a taste, and then we'll kind of discuss what we're thinking and feeling.
Again, very fruit forward, but you wouldn't mistake that for a fruit beer per se. Again, it's got a little bit of that wild taste. As I said, it's not a sour beer, although there is a little bit of you do get some very light acidity in there as well.
It does, to me, I'm perceiving apricot, but now I'm not sure if you've primed me to think I'm tasting that flavor, but it feels like an apricot on my tongue.
I always associate a lot of the Brett character with apricots. There's different Bretts, some we'll talk about Brett C always being, about pineapple. Well, this beer has multiple types of Brett in it, so there is Brett C in here. It doesn't mean it's just going to taste like pineapple. It's a combination of that. Again, I believe the hops, I want to say we used a lot of Galaxy hops, very fruit forward as well. So you have to think about beer in the idea that just because you combine one ingredient that tastes like this with another ingredient that tastes like that you're going to get that combination. They meld, they change, they work together, and you end up with something completely unique.
What would you say to someone who's tasting a Brett for the first time?
Well, I would say don't approach it like, you're going to just sling back a ice cold, crisp lentil beer. You definitely don't want to do that. These are, again, we would call these our premium beers. These are in our bottle, fancy bottles, that sort of stuff. They're typically meant to be served at a warmer temperature. If you drink them really cold, they're going to be harsh, they're going to be aggressive, and it's probably going to be a big turnoff, especially if you've never had one before. You want to usually pour them in, a nice snifter or a nice sample glass. Serve it a little bit warmer, give it a chance to breathe. Take time, just enjoy the smell. It should be very, very interesting. You can, it's going to pair well with a lot of different cheeses, that sort of stuff. The other beer that's the real classic version of a Brett beer is Orval, which is a Belgian beer. And in Belgium, they always serve all their beers. They're meant to be served typically with cheeses and breads and that sort of stuff. I suppose you could sit down and pound some and watch a Rider game. Maybe that's the way you roll. But it's really meant to be more of a kind of it's a fancy pants beer. We'll just call it that.
A fancy pants beer?
Yeah. It's not for everyone. The whole Stone Brewing thing, you're not worthy. I'd say the Brett beer is kind of, it's one of those you're not worthy kind of beers. But I still encourage everyone to at least give it a shot, understand what Brett's all about.
It tastes a lot different from what I remember the last Brett beer I had. What might cause that?
So we've done a couple Brett beers already. Again, starting up with a small brewery, a new brewery, still only 3 years old. It's taken time to build up our yeast culture. It's taken time, which is really important to get really nice Brett fermentation characters. Figuring out how to produce Brett beers on a large scale. Again, it doesn't always just translate from making 20 liters at home to 2,000 liters in a brewery. And the barrels themselves. So again, sour beers and Brett beers are typically made in, you typically do age them in oak barrels. And oak barrels that, have kind of had most of the oak flavor, definitely the bourbon flavor. If they were a bourbon barrel, you want most of that removed. So our previous versions of this had some bourbon flavor in them because we were still using pretty new, pretty fresh barrels. But that's finally starting to calm down now, and you're starting to get more of that classic flavor profile that you would associate with a Brett beer. So as a guy that's drank a lot of these, I'm really, really happy with the way this one turned out. I think it's fantastic. What's really cool about Brett beers is that they change with age. They will continue to evolve and develop. Again, we're really, really big on pushing the whole idea of consuming fresh beer, and keeping it stored cold. But there's always, again, the fancy pants beers. Those ones can get tucked away in your basement. Try one after 6 months, try one after a year, try one after 2 years, that sort of thing.
That's the aging time frame could be up to 2 years?
Oh, well beyond that. I've had Orval 5 years, 7 years old. Yeah, we've again when I had time for all that kind of stuff, we've sat and had Orval tastings. Evan, one of the co-founders of Rebellion Brewing, he actually went to the brewery that makes Orval, the Matilda Abbey, I believe. Anyways, don't quote me on that. I might be mixing it up. It's Matilda. It's definitely Matilda. His daughter is named after that now. But anyways, we had an Orval tasting where we tasted, some fresh Orval that he brought back. It was nice and hoppy and bright. It tasted much like a classic pale ale. And then I had accumulated a bunch of older ones, from 6 months to I think about 5 or 6 years. And you just see that whole transformation. And they were all fantastic, all very, very tasty.
But different.
But completely different beers, completely different. So yeah, that's where you can really get your geek on and nerd out on some of this different stuff. Orval actually claims it's good up to as far as 20 years. Again, stored under the right conditions. We're not going to be making any more Brett beer for some time. We're actually switching those barrels over to some different types of beers. This is a limited edition. There's only so many bottles available, so you should stock up and put some away and just enjoy it, share it with friends, turn other people on to the crazy world of Brett beers. We do have it available in the tap room. It's going to be going out to some select private stores as well very soon, but it's going to be kind of a one and done thing. You're not going to see it too much. It's real easy to see it. It's in our bottle, big orange color, and a cow with sunglasses.
All right. Well, I want to thank Mark Heise for joining us on the Rebellion Brewing podcast. Join us next week when we'll be interviewing Regan Hinchcliffe from S Media. He's going to be talking about his viral pepper video that picked up 4.4 million views. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join us in the discussion online and tell us what you think. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Untappd. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.